Hey, what's going on, everybody? JJ Wilson, and this is going to be a special video. It was a recommendation as told to me by shout out to one of my big subs, Gaming Geek 11. So on the Discord, he was telling me about this old anime that I should check out. You know, take your time with it, see what it's all about. And so okay, I will. I'll do so. So yeah, this anime I checked out is called Gungrave, and it was made by the same anime artist as, not anime artist, it was made by the same manga artist as the maker of Trigun, Yasuhiro Nightow. I hope I said that right, the last name, or Nightow. But yeah, this guy, he made Trigun, and then he made Gungrave, and then he made a bunch of newer shows after that, which I've yet to see. But I may have to check out more of his catalog at a later time. So yeah, Gungrave, for the most part, is basically a tragic yet thrilling drama type anime. So, and what's interesting is it was also made off a video game. I think the game came out before the anime did. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I have not played the game version of this, and I believe it was on the PS2. Correct me if I'm wrong. PlayStation 2, the Gungrave game. But I checked out the anime, so this will pertain to that. But basically, the anime is about, you know, family for the most part, and also mafia style culture. And the setting, if you check out the scenes of the pictures that I'll have, it's in the US, I'm pretty sure. It's not set in Japan, although they have some characters in the show that are like, they have Japanese names and stuff, but everybody else, you know, they kind of have Western style names for the most part. And so let's go ahead and break down the characters a little bit. We'll start with the main character of the show, Brandon Heat, better known in the latter part of the anime as Beyond the Grave. So, as you can probably tell already with the name, yeah, this guy died and he has come back to life. Right? And the person that did it, little spoiler alert, is his best friend, who they grew up together as children, who's also the enemy or the antagonist of the show, who, you know, conspired to take him out. His name is Harry McDowell, right? And so, growing up, they had three other friends. It was Brandon, it was Harry, and their other three friends, Jolis, who was the cook. You had Kenny, he was kind of like their top thief, the short guy. And then you had another big enforcer named Nathan. So the three of those guys, they all hung out with Harry and Brandon, and they would do a lot of small petty crimes and stuff just to survive in the streets, because they lived in such a rough town. They lived in a rough part of that big city. I forget the name of it. I don't even know if they actually named the city, but it's basically where the mafia headquarters is, called Millennium. So that's the name of the mafia, the big mafia company that resides over that town. It's called Millennium. And of course, you got smaller but more significant rival factions around Millennium, and they also want to take control of the town or that region. But for many years, Millennium has pretty much held territory in that particular city. So yeah, Brandon, Harry, like, they're just surviving, man. Like, they're doing whatever it takes to kind of like, you know, live in that rough part of town, until one day there was like an enforcer that they were fearing. I think his name was Mad Dog or something like that. And so one thing led to another, and the last three friends I talked about, Jolis, Kenny, and Nathan, those guys ended up dying due to Mad Dog's actions. And then he also got the attention of Millennium, and this is where you see some of the people involved in there, like a bunch of old heads, especially Bear Walking. I'll get to him a little later. And so, you know, out of revenge, I guess, Harry and Brandon, they kind of wanted to get back at Mad Dog, and they eventually do. And that's when they first encounter Millennium. And so, at first, the guy that recruits them, like, he doesn't really like Harry, because he could kind of tell he was a lying punk or whatever. He kind of had this feeling like, you know, this dude, you know, he's a snot nose. He's just trying to, you know, get by over people. I mean, it was an accurate statement because later in the anime, you know, Harry, he does a lot of diabolical things to get in power and stuff, you know, because he's very ambitious like that, and he hates being told what to do. He always wants to be in control of things, you know. He likes being the leader, basically. And so, you know, the only reason Brandon decided to really even join up with Harry in this gang or this mafia is because the girl in the show, the love of his life, basically, Maria Asagi. But unfortunately, Maria also gets caught up in the entanglement of Millennium's activities because her father, I think he was a part of that organization, but he did something that he shouldn't have done, and eventually they came and paid him a visit, and he dies as well. And so I guess Brandon, they eventually find out what happened to Maria, and they try to rescue her, but to no avail. She's still under the apprehension of Millennium, and she actually gets paid a visit to see the top guy of the whole organization. And this is probably one of my criticisms of this show. Like, these names, man. These names kill me. Like, okay, the top guy of that whole show is called Big Daddy. Yeah, Big Daddy. You know, like, I mean, Brandon Heat is kind of weird enough. Like, the last name Heat is pretty good, you know, because he does pack the heat later in the season because he gets trained to be an assassin by Bear Walking. And man, does he get good? Like, he gets like amazing good when it comes to pistols, man. Holy crap. I mean, he's a beast, Brandon Heat is, when it comes to killing. But yeah, I mean, like, besides Big Daddy, there's another name that really made me laugh. Bob Poundmax. And obviously, you know, I'll get to him later. But yeah, some of those names is like, wow, dude. Like, very original. Really creative there. You know, but Big Daddy, just to talk about him, like, he eventually gets infatuated by Maria because of her beauty and because of how nurturing she is around him. And because of that, he eventually falls in love with this girl. At first, you know, he was kind of taking care of her on behalf of her father that died. Because even though he broke the laws of the mafia, like, you know, it was obvious, like, him and her father, Big Daddy, and her father Jester, they go way back and stuff, right? They go pretty far. And so, you know, as the show goes on, Brandon pretty much decides to let Maria go to Big Daddy, pretty much. And Harry was kind of confused by this. He was like, man, why'd you let her go? You know, why you let her, why you let that old man take her and stuff like that? It's like, she needs to be happy. That's the ultimate thing I want her to be. According to Brand's word, he just wants her to be free and happy and stay away from him in particular, because he eventually tells her what he does in that organization, because she never knows what Brandon was doing all that time since they were separated. You know. But eventually he tells her, like, yeah, I'm a hitman. I'm a killer. You know. And like, she couldn't believe it when she heard this, man. It was wild, you know. It was very wild. So yeah, Brandon, he is as low as it gets when it comes to Millennium, because, you know, because he has such a deep friendship with Harry, and because he wants to see Maria safe, he does whatever the organization tells him to do. And eventually he gets close to Big Daddy, and they're going fishing, and they're in his mansion talking one-on-one. So in a way, he almost becomes like the son that Big Daddy never had, right? And that's what the whole family piece kind of comes into play and things of that nature. But this show, I believe, it also has an underlying theme in it too. It also has an underlying theme. It's also hypocrisy, because of the rules set up in the said organization to never betray the family. And referring to Big Daddy, he eventually has a child with Maria called Mika, and you'll see her in the second half of the show. And you know, and basically how this whole thing got started, I mean, just another spoiler, when Harry finally does get into like one of the top executive positions in Millennium, he's expected that he's going to become the next heir. Like, okay, Big Daddy's going to choose me, or he might choose Brandon, although Brandon was just a right-hand man of Big Daddy's, and he becomes a top sweeper thanks to the recommendation of Bear Walking, right? So Harry is expecting to get hired as the next heir to replace Big Daddy, because he's pretty much retired at this rate, because the man's like 65 years old or whatever. And so they're in this big meeting. You know, you see some of these big top-notch names, and you hear the name Bisco. It's another older gentleman, and you'll know more about him later in the show. I'm not going to spoil too much of that. But basically, Big Daddy chooses another guy over Harry to become the next heir, and obviously he's not too happy about that. And this led to the part where Harry hears Brandon and Big Daddy talk one-on-one, because I'm not sure how, but there was like I think it was like a microphone that was still on in his room, and he could hear them talk. Or maybe it was like a audio chip that he embedded inside Brandon or whatever. I don't know. I forget how it happened, but Harry hears Brandon and Big Daddy talk, and Brandon pretty much says whoever betrays the organization to a certain extent, he's gonna kill them. He doesn't care who it is, because Big Daddy expressed concern about Harry, because he thought about picking Harry, but he chose not to, because he felt like Harry was going to disrupt the balance and the harmony, keyword harmony, of the Mafia, the Millennium Mafia. He felt like, you know, his rise to the top was too fast, because he was very young. He was only like in his late 20s, right? He felt like his rise and his success, although he acknowledges it, he feels like it was too fast. And I still don't know what his real motives are, because he kept hearing rumors about what's called necrolization. And then let me go ahead and talk about necrolization. So this is a process to where you can revive dead people and enhance their abilities. So the people have to die first, and when you enhance their abilities, they become kind of like monsters. They become like these killing machines almost, right? And so you first learn about that through through a part where you encounter this guy named Blood War, and he's fresh out of jail. Like, this is one of the villains in the show, but his reign is short-lived, of course, because Brandon deals with him. You know, they're literally fighting one-on-one. But yeah, Blood War, he comes out of prison, and this dude, because he loves violence so much, he gets hired by a guy named Cannon Vulcan. And Cannon Vulcan, it works for another mafia, and through this mafia, he's trying to get them to overthrow Millennium. Right, so Cannon and Blood War, they work together to, eventually try to upsert the Millennium, but that doesn't work, because Harry, thanks to Harry's, espionage skills with the help of Bob Poundmax, he's able to find out where these guys are, and he takes Brandon with him, and then when Blood War first encounters Brandon, like, damn, he's like, hold up, I didn't read this guy until the last minute, like, I couldn't do nothing to Harry because Brandon, because he was right there, he was gonna shoot me in the bar. So I was like, damn. Anyway, so Blood War, when he hears word about this scientific research through Dr. Tokioka, and this is the guy that helps to revive Brandon, but I'm going to get to that a little later. So Dr. Tokioka, he's the guy that sort of upsert this technology of necrolization, right? And so it's through him that Blood War decides that he was going to sacrifice his gang. He has a small gang of mercenaries that works under him. So he, in one episode, he kills all the gang just so they can be sacrificed as soldiers, basically necrolized soldiers, so they can fight recklessly, man, just tear things up, because he's getting ready for a war against Brandon Heath, and eventually they do fight, and of course Brandon prevails, spoiler alert. So yeah, so that's Blood War. But yeah, necrolization in this anime was really important, because this is the only way that Brandon was going to be able to get back at Harry for killing him, in that famous scene going into the elevator. Because the reason why Harry eventually kills Brandon is because of what he heard on the radio with that private conversation with Brandon and also Big Daddy. And another reason why was is because he eventually finds out about necrolization too. And he was going to use that to eventually overthrow the Millennium Mafia and take it over for himself, pretty much. So that was reason number 2. But, what made the ending so great, man, because throughout that whole series, man, it was just crazy. It was a lot of crazy scenes happening, especially in the latter part. And I think before you encounter Blood War, there was Bungie, and he eventually became one of the top mercenaries under Millennium by the time Harry showed up. So it's basically 4 guys that worked under Harry. So you had Bob Poundmax, the fat dude. You had Ballad Bart Lee. He was like another assassin type, and he was really creepy, man. And like he was pretty close to Bob as well, and he wasn't too happy when he found out that Bob was like one of the first guys that Brandon Heat or Beyond the Grave killed by the time he got revived. But man, he wasn't too happy with Brandon. He was crazy. And then there's Bungie. Bungie was a mercenary that worked under another mafia, and he was very, very infamous for being a top-notch killer, man. Like, his gun draws was one of the fastest in that whole show, besides Brandon. But of course, he encounters Brandon and Harry pretty much tells him that, hey man, you're being used by this other mercenary group, this mafia group here. Why don't you join us instead? You got skills, basically. But that's not what led Bungie to join up. It was basically Brandon pretty much enticing him to join up when they got into a fight, and Brandon won the fight. And so because of that, Bungie was like, you know what, I'm gonna rock with you guys instead. But by the time Brandon dies, Bungie was so upset to find out that he quote-unquote betrayed the organization, which was a lie, that he pretty much became more distrustful people, basically. He still worked for Millennium, but he just did not like working with other people, man. He always loved to do things solo, and that's why on 2 different occasions he fights Brandon by himself, because he didn't want nobody else to mess with him. And then there's Bear Walken. So let me talk about Bear Walken. Bear Walken is one of the oldest members in the organization, and he was a one-time #1 assassin, or also known as a sweeper, hitman, until Brandon came along. And then when he sees that Brandon was somebody that he felt like could rise up in the organization, he trained him to be basically kind of like his replacement or his right-hand man, so to speak. But this is where the hypocrisy talk comes in, right? So at one point in the show, Bear Walken has to kill his best friend. Let me get his name right. His name was Galladay Sid. So there was a point in the show where he was told that he had to kill this guy, and they pretty much got into the organization at the same time. But Bear Walker didn't have it in him to kill him. But then Brandon Heat comes at the last minute, he takes him out, right? And the reason why he understood Gallard's problem was because he was supposed to kill his son, because his son was the one that made the mistake of mishandling funds or whatever. And instead of killing his son, Galladay Sid, he decides to let him run away. Instead, he gave him some money. He told him to get the hell out of town. But because of that, and then he became a target, because he broke the Iron Code, basically, betrayal, right? So Bear Walken, as much as he cared about this guy, he didn't kill him. He didn't have what it takes to kill him, because he understood that he loved his son too much to kill his son, right? But Brandon came in there and killed him. So the reason why I say that is because Bear Walken has a daughter. Her name was Sherry, and Sherry, as a young girl, meets Harry, and she falls in love with Harry, and in turn Harry falls in love with her, even though in the past Harry had all these different kinds of girls, man. He was like a Casanova. But as he gets older, Harry eventually settles down, and he keeps Sherry as a wife, and they stayed married for probably a good decade or 2, maybe about 10-15 years, until she too ends up dying. I won't say how she died. It was basically, she was the only reason why Bear Walken decided to stay in Millennium in the first place, especially after Big Daddy dies, as well as Brandon. And that's the only reason why he decided to keep going, because he wanted to see her daughter, because Bear wanted to see Sherry happy, pretty much, That's why he didn't have it in him to betray Harry. And see, by the time, he encounters Brandon, he's basically telling, hey, Brandon, let's go one-on-one in a fair duel as men, right? Because he still honored Brandon as a friend, but at the same time, he was still Millennium, at least under Harry. And he was doing it to protect his daughter. So he understood that Brandon was out there to try to take out everybody in the organization that pretty much betrayed Brandon. so to speak. So I mean, like I said, that's like the two things I got out of this whole anime, y'all. Family, number one. Number two, hypocrisy, right? And before I end this review, I'm just gonna briefly talk about ultimately what led Brandon and Harry to basically kill each other. You know, at the latter part of the show. So there was a part where Harry was asking Brandon, why you pulled a gun on me? You know, why you try to shoot me? You know, and then Brandon was like, you know, ultimately, man, I made the wrong choice. And this is why Brandon hesitated. This is why Beyond the Grave hesitated to kill Harry in the elevator, because he didn't have what it takes to kill Harry. He's like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull that trigger to protect Big Daddy. Like, I still honor you as a friend. Our friendship goes too deep. So as much as he wanted to, you know, get back at the organization or Millennium, he still had respect and love for Harry. Like, he didn't want to kill him. You know, and Harry couldn't believe it. It was like, damn. It's like, that's where I went wrong. He was trying to figure out what's happening. Why am I being hunted down? Like, what's going on? Because, you know, in certain parts of the show, Harry just goes crazy, man, because his ambition was so powerful that he was just disillusioned and he couldn't trust nobody, you know. And that's why he got the nickname Bloody Harry, because he killed so many people to get to the top of the mafia, right, of Millennium. And so he was like, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Like, oh, that's where I went wrong. I killed Brandon. But he didn't know Brandon wasn't going to kill him up until the point where, you know, he started having doubts about killing Harry. But Harry didn't want to take that chance because he was too afraid to lose his life. So that's why he shot Brandon. I was like, dang. So yeah, man. I mean, that's pretty much what I got out of the show. I guess I'll touch on the daughter too, Mika, because she was pretty instrumental in kind of aiding Brandon when he needed help, so to speak, and in certain parts of the show. And she was like an unfortunate pawn. I mean, she does live, but like, man, she just didn't understand what was going on in her life. She was living life as a normal girl, and all of a sudden it just turns upside down, all because of Millennium. You know, at certain points she meets all the people that work under Millennium, especially Harry, and she was just tired of it all, man. She hated the fact that she was seeing everybody close to her get killed, you know, and she just wanted to change. And she just wanted everybody to just stop fighting, man. But it didn't matter, you know. Men, when they seek something, when they have power, they want to keep it by any means necessary. So it didn't matter what the pleas of a young girl were. It just wasn't enough to stop men from doing what they wanted to do out there in the world, you know. But yeah, I know I dragged this review on, but if you also watch Gungrave, let me know, and you tell me what you thought about the anime. It was a pretty good show, I'm not gonna lie. Action packed, drama filled, tons of betrayal going on left and right. You know, Thanksgiving Geek for the recommendation. And if there's any more animes you want me to check out, I'll do my best to check them out with the time that I have. And you all take care. I'll see you later.